Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how we can take awesome YouTube videos like this Picking Nuggets video here with some amazing content in it from Naval Ravikant, some really good life lessons. And then we can use these scenarios in Make, and you can see them working in the background here, to actually create the social media content for us from the transcript of the video, and then have this in drafted status. And then we can then change our status here from drafted to ready once we're good for it to go. And then we can use a second make.com automation here to publish it to our selected social media platforms of choice. So to do this, we're going to be using a few different tools. Make.com, as you can see here, which is what we always use for our automations. Don't forget, as always, guys, if you do want the templates, so the blueprint that you see in front of you here for this full automation, you check in the description down below in the video, and there'll be a link there. Take you to a page, drop your details in, and I'll send you the blueprints for this automation here, and then the second part of the automation here, as well as the templates for the Airtable database that we're using here to process the YouTube video into our content that you can see here. So just to recap on the tools that we're going to be using today, obviously we're going to be using YouTube to grab the URL and grab the transcript from the YouTube video. We're going to be using Airtable as our database, like usual. We're also going to be using make.com to run all of our automations. And then we're also going to be using a new tool today, Apify, which is a scraping tool that allows us to take the YouTube video, run a job on it to actually extract the transcript from the video, and then pull that into our automation so that we can use it for social media content creation. And then we're also going to be using ChatGPT assistants. So we're actually going to create a custom assistant from scratch that's going to process the transcript from the YouTube video, and then it's going to turn that into our social media posts that we can see here. So let's jump into it, guys. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is set up our Airtable database, and we always want to use an inputs table and then process the inputs into the outputs, which is the content here. So let's start this from scratch. I'm going to come into Airtable. So you want to create your Airtable account. I'm going to start from scratch here. Let's get rid of this. And then I'm going to label this as YouTube URL or YouTube video to social media content. And then I'll just put YT. This is for our YouTube. Let's change this to use the same yellow as before. Now for our main field here, we want the YouTube URL. So we're going to double click on the top here, label this as YouTube URL, change the field type to URL, click save. The next thing that I want to do is have a status. So I'm going to call this status, and we already have one over here, so actually let's use this. Let's just grab this, move it over to the left, and then we'll double click on it. I'm going to edit the options here, and I'm going to put pending. And then I will also then suggest ready. And then we will have processed so that we can know once this video has been processed. All right. So let's change the color on that, and then we are good to save. The other field that we're going to need here, so I'm just going to delete these two for now, is we're going to need a last modified field. So if I call this last modified, and then I'm going to search here for last modified time. Now what this does is it's going to update the timestamp in this field, so the date and time in this field, every time one of these two fields is updated. So this is always going to be the last time that this record has been modified. And the reason that we need that is because that's what we're going to use to trigger the make.com automation. I'll show you that in a minute. So we have our inputs. If we come over to this table name here, I'm just going to rename this as YouTube input. Then we're going to want a secondary table here. So we're going to click on add, start from scratch. Table 2 is going to be content outputs. So in here, we're going to have we're going to use the main field here to give this an ID. And then we're going to change this to auto number, just so that it automatically creates a new ID number for every single record here. As you can see down here, if I create a new record, it's going to give it number 4. So then the second thing that we want here is to actually collect the content. So here we're going to call this content. We can leave this as a long text field already. So click save. I'm going to delete this assignee. We're going to reuse this status field. So I'm going to click on here, click edit field, and then we're going to have drafted. So drafted is the status that we want to put it in once it's first been created by the assistant. Then we're going to review it, and then once we've reviewed it, edited it, whatever we need to do, we can then move it to ready. And then the final one can be published. So once it's published via our make.com automation, we can then also update this record to notify that it's been published. So we've got our content, we've got our status. We also want to have a field here for the platform. What platform is this being posted on? So yeah, we'll use this as a single select. I'm going to put LinkedIn. I'm going to put X. I'm also going to put Instagram, create field. And then the final field we're just going to add is a link back to our YouTube input record. So if I click on link to another field, I'm going to click on YT input, and then I'm going to call this YouTube URL. Create field. Skip the lookup fields, we don't need those. And essentially what that's going to do is it's going to link this content back to the content that it came from, that we processed it from. Okay, so now we've got our, actually, and then the last field that we need, I forgot, is the last modified again, because we're going to be using this to trigger the second automation as well. So come into here, click on last modified time, click create field, and away we go. So now we have our Airtable database set up that we can actually use it to create our make.com automations. So before we do that though, I just want to quickly jump over to Apify and show you Apify. So Apify is a really cool tool that is focused on website scraping. If I click on browse existing tools, you can see there is a bunch of stuff in here that's really, really useful. So Google Maps extractor, TikTok data extractor, Instagram scraper. Today, we're just going to be using the YouTube transcript scraper. So if you don't have an Apify account, you can create a free account, and you do get a $5 usage limit per month with that. And I'll kind of show you what that means in a second. So I'm just going to go into the console. I'm already logged in. When you create your account, you will come into a dashboard that kind of looks like this. And what we want to do is use a specific actor. And the one that we're using is called YouTube Transcript Ninja. Okay. So if you want to find that from scratch, if you come over to store here, and then if you click on the search box, type in YouTube Transcript, do a search, and then you'll see it here. This is the one that I'm using currently. So YouTube Transcript Ninja, you can click on that. And then this is if you wanted to run this manually from within Apify. We could just literally grab the YouTube URL, come over to here, we could drop it in, we could click on save and start. And then what you're going to see is it's going to start doing a job here. It's going to start running this scraper to pull the transcript from the YouTube video. And this can take around about 25 seconds, something like that. So I'll just pause the video here and we'll come back in a sec. All right, so the scraper has been done. You can see it took 22 seconds. We've got one result here. So if I click on this output, you can now see the transcript from the YouTube video. And this is what we're going to be using in our make.com automation. So now that we've got our Apify set up, we've run this once, let's go into make.com and let's start building the automation. Okay, so I'm just going to come into make.com, come into scenarios, click on create a new scenario. I'm going to just label this one YouTube, let's call it YT, to social content 1 out of 2. And I'm just going to put demo here. I'm going to save that. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to actually watch our Airtable database for a new YouTube URL, because the process that we're going to take here is whenever we find some really interesting content on YouTube, if it's a video like this that we want to turn into a social post, maybe it could be on any topic, obviously, you can use it however you want, but we want to grab that URL and then we want to drop it into our YouTube URL input. You can see the last modified has already been updated. One thing that I'm just going to quickly do here is edit this status field, and I'm just going to put the default option as pending. Okay, so let me just redo this. I'm going to delete this record. I'm going to add this new record, put that YouTube URL in, and then you can see now we have a piece of content that is in pending status. And when we're ready, what we want to do is click this over to ready. And by making it ready, we want to trigger a make.com automation. So we're going to click on this big plus icon. We're going to come over to Airtable. We're going to click on watch records. That's going to open up our Airtable node. You want to make sure that your Airtable database is connected. So your Airtable workspace, should I say, is connected. Then I'm going to choose the base, which is our social media content, YouTube video to social media content. I'm going to select the table as the YT input table, which is our first table here. Then our trigger field is going to be our last modified field. We're going to set our label field as our YouTube URL. And then I'm going to click on OK. Now, before I click OK here, I'm just going to click on choose manually. And what that's going to do is it's going to search our current database here, and it's going to look for this YouTube URL. I'm going to click on OK. Now that gives us something to just click on run once, and then it's going to use that and pull that data from that record. So now we can see we have our YouTube URL to work with here. Now the next thing that we want to do is send that to Apify. Okay, so I'm going to click on add another module. I'm going to do a quick search here for Apify, and I'm going to say run a selected actor. So I'm going to click on this. I've already connected my Apify account, which you will need to do if you have not done so already. So make sure that you do that. You just need to grab API keys and make sure that that is connected. Now we can see in the actor here, because we've already used the transcript scraper once before, so make sure that you do this step that I previously mentioned to you. Make sure that you run this once at least. It's going to load that actor in, and then you can click on actor here, and then we're going to save that into here, which is the YouTube transcript. Now there is a field here that says input JSON. Now this is what we're going to use to actually run the script. So if we come back over to our Apify account, I'm going to come over to actors. I'm going to open up our YouTube transcript Ninja. And then I'm just going to click on JSON here. And then what that's going to do is it's going to give us the JSON code that it needs to run. And then obviously it's got a default YouTube URL in here. So what we're going to do is just highlight all of this. I'm going to copy it. So Command C or Control C if you're on Windows. Come over to new scenario. And then I'm going to just paste that into our input JSON. Now I want to remove this URL here. And then between these two quotation marks, I'm just going to drop in our Airtable YouTube URL like that. And then from there, we're just going to click on OK. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to click on, we're just going to test this out now. So I'm going to click on choose where to start, choose manually. I'm going to grab our record, click on OK, and we're going to click on run once. And then it's going to send it over to Apify to start the actor. Now this doesn't give us the output that we need, because as you saw when I was running the actor in Apify previously, it took around about 25 seconds for it to actually run. So what we need to do here is we actually need to add a timer. So I'm going to click on add another module, come down to tools, and then we want to use the sleep module here. And then I'm just going to delay this for like 45 seconds just to make sure that it's got enough time to do its run, even if it's running slow. And then I'm going to add a second module here, come back to Apify, and then I'm going to say get data set items. So what's going to happen now is, the Airtable database gets triggered, it grabs the URL, comes into this Apify actor here, then it sleeps while the job is running. And then after 45 seconds, it's going to call a dataset ID. And if I click on this here, it brings up our outputs from the Apify run actor. If I scroll down, you've got default dataset ID. Click on that, that will drop that in. And then I'm going to click on OK. So let's test this out once more. I'm going to click on right click here, choose where to start, choose manually, OK. Sorry, click on this and then click on OK. Then we're going to run once. And now we can see this happening. Now I'm just going to skip the video forward a second here because we don't want to wait 45 seconds, and I'll come back in a sec. All right, so now we can see that the job has run completely. And if we come over to our get dataset items Apify module, if I click on this little icon, we can now see that we have in our output here, we have the transcript. So now we can work with this. But before we do that, let's just go back a step here and let's just remember our trigger here from Airtable. So we only want this to run once we have grabbed once we put our URL in. Obviously it defaults to pending. And the reason being is because you might want to upload a bunch of URLs at once without actually running the job. And then we only want it to trigger once we've set this to set this to ready. So in our scenario, what we're going to do between the Airtable and the running of Apify is we're just going to click on this little tool icon here, and then we're going to set up a filter, and the condition is going to be status is equal to, and then we're just going to type in ready. So our label here is status is ready. Because essentially what's going to happen is every time that we upload something into this Airtable database, the last modified field is going to get updated. So even when it's in pending state, the last modified is going to get updated and it's going to trigger this Airtable run here, but we don't want it to go forward unless the status is actually ready. So then when we change the status to ready, the last modified field will be updated again and it will trigger the scenario again. And if the status is ready, then it will run through the jobs. So now that we've got the transcript to work with, what we actually want to do is pass that over to ChatGPT so it can create our content. So let's start that process. I'm going to come over to ChatGPT and I'm in the developer platform here, which is what you're going to need to use to create the assistants. So you can access that at platform.openai.com. If you go to that URL, it will ask you to create an account if you don't already have one. If you do have one, it will bring you to this dashboard here. And then at the top, you can click on dashboard and then it's going to bring you straight to assistants. Okay. Then we're going to click on create. And we're going to call this LinkedIn assistant or LinkedIn post assistant. So that's why we give this the name. Then we have our instructions, which we'll come back to in a second. This is where we're going to put our prompt. Then we've got our model, which is GPT-4o. It's the latest model. We'll continue to use that. And then you've got some other tools and functions down here that you can use. So you can configure the model temperature and top P here. This just gives different outputs depending on what you're looking for. I'm not going to cover that in this video. I'm just going to leave this as it is. One thing that I am going to give this assistant access to though is the file search tool. And the reason being is because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to upload my personal writing style and tone guide into this assistant. And this is where these assistants can become really powerful. If we give them files and we give them data to work with, then they can create much better content that is more tailored to us and our approach of writing. Otherwise, it's just going to pump out ChatGPT content that just looks, the same as every other AI content. So by giving the assistant extra data and really good instructions, that's how we get amazing content here out of these YouTube video transcripts. And it's not just regurgitating it, but then wrapping it in some AI general content, right? Because we don't want that. We want it to be more tailored towards us. So I'm going to come into here. I'm going to click on plus files. Then I'm going to give it my writing style and tone guide. And you could add other things to this assistant as well, guys. You know, like you could add like templates in here. So if you wanted it to follow like specific templates, and let's say you had like 10 templates or styles of content that you really liked, that you wanted it to output, you could load that in and you give it that data to work with as well. But for now, I'm just going to put this in. I'm going to click on attach. And then what that does is it creates a vector store for this assistant. And a vector store is just the database that it's going to use it. So if I click on that, I can see within this database, it's got access to this guide. So I'm going to click close. And then what we need to do is give it the instructions. All right, so I've already prepared my prompt here. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in, and then I will show it to you here. So this is pretty basic, guys. You want to, tailor this to however you want to write and whatever you want it to output. But here I've put, you are an expert writer that works with me to create engaging and useful LinkedIn posts. So we've told it what it is. We've given it a goal. So your goal is to write posts that are useful for the reader and give value. You will always use my writing style and tone guide as reference. Here's some additional instructions here. So start a new line after every sentence. Use emojis sparingly, if at all. Always write in British English. Do not use any fluffy language or cringe phrases. Make each sentence to the point. I put that straight to the point there. Here is, I'm going to give it an example as well. Here is an example post. I'm just going to pull one from my content database here. I'm just going to give it an example of previous post that has done pretty well for me. Actually, yeah, let's stick with one. I'll give it one. So that is our assistant. I'm going to come back out of instructions here. So now we have our assistant ready to go, okay? So if I come back over to our make scenario, now we need to pass the transcript from Apify over into our ChatGPT assistant. So let's just do that, and then we can add in our other assistants as well. So I'm going to click on add another module, OpenAI, message an assistant. Then it's going to load my connection to OpenAI here. And it's going to look for the assistant that we just created. So if we just give it 1 second. So if we click on assistant here, we can see we've got our LinkedIn post assistant. And then in our message, we're going to leave the role as user. And then in our message, I'm going to say, here is the transcript. Actually, let me just check my assistant for 1 second. I didn't tell it that I was going to give it a transcript. So I will give you a transcript from an insightful YouTube video. Please turn this into a LinkedIn post, and then we can give it the rest of its instructions here. Okay, so now if we come back over to make.com, we're going to say here is the transcript, and then I'm just going to pull in here the transcript from the last module. We don't need to do anything else here, so I'm just going to click on OK. And then we're just going to run this and see what we get. So I'm going to click on, right click on our first module, choose where to start, choose manually. Now we'll just use this one. We'll click run once. And again, guys, it's going to hit this tool here to do the 45-second wait. So we'll skip that and I'll come back once it's done. All right, so just coming back in just before it's finished here, you can see that the assistant is now doing its job, and now we have our output. So if I click down here, if I go into content, click on this number 1, text, and then value, now we can see down here that we have a new LinkedIn post. And obviously, again, guys, we're always going to want to refine this. Maybe even reference the original YouTube video as well. We need to put our own spin on this content. It's not about just ripping somebody else's content and then just like passing it off as our own, obviously. So that's a caveat I just want to put in here. But we've got our assistant working now, which is great. So the next thing that we need to do is take that content and then put it back into our Airtable database. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is create a new record. And the reason we're creating a new record is because we're creating it in our second table here, which is content outputs, right? So I'm going to create that new record. I'm going to click on our base. I'm going to go to our YouTube video to social media content base. And then the table is going to be, this time, is going to be content outputs. And the content is going to be the result of the assistant. The status, we're actually going to turn the map off here, and we're actually going to just put this as drafted. So when it goes in, it's drafted. Platform, we're going to turn the map off again, and we're going to select LinkedIn. The YouTube URL, we're going to add that item here, and the record ID is going to be the original Airtable ID here. All right, so I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to click on OK. So that's going to create our record here, and it's going to link it to our original, it's going to link it to our YouTube input. And then the last thing that I want to do is update the status of this to processed. And actually, I'm going to do one more thing here as well. I'm just going to remove this. And then we've got our linked table here. Let me just change that to that. So that's going to be our linked table. And then I'm just going to add one final field here because why not? We may as well also store the transcription, right? So let me go back. I'm going to make this a long text. We're going to go transcript, create that. And then I'm going to pull this over. And then if we come back to make, we're going to click on add another module. And this time we're going to update a record. So now we're going to update the original record. So again, we're going to select our base. And then we're going to go to our YT input table. And then we're going to take the record ID that we passed over right at the beginning. I'm going to click on that. The YouTube URL we don't need to update because it's already in there. We're going to change the status. So we're going to turn the map off and we're going to change the status to processed. And then we're also going to load the transcript into here as well. So now if I click on this, I'm going to click on transcript. The content outputs we won't need to change because it will already be linked. And now we have our full chain working for our first assistant. Obviously, we need to create our other social media assistants as well, so we'll move on to that in a sec, but let's just test this and make sure that this is running correctly. So I'm going to click on choose where to start, choose manually, click on this, click on OK, run once. And again, guys, I'll spare you the 45-second wait. We'll come back once it's done. All right, so we can see our assistant is working here now that we've got past the 45-second wait. In a second, that's going to create our new Airtable record and then update our existing one, right? So if I come over to content outputs, we should see in a sec, this gets updated. Here we go. There is a new output for us here. And then the original record is linked here, and then it opens that record from our YT inputs. So if I click on YT inputs, we've got everything here. It's now processed. We've got our transcript here as well. And we can see it is linked to content output record number 5, which is here. There we go, right? So now that we have this, I'm just going to get rid of these. Now that we have this content, we would obviously still want to edit it, make sure that it matches our tone and voice, because the AI agent is not going to get it 100% right, but it's going to get it much better if it didn't have the data to work with. And then once we are good with this, we want to be able to move this to ready so that it is published over on LinkedIn. But before we do that, I also want to create content from the transcript for X/Twitter and also for Instagram as well. Hey guys, I am now in the future. So sorry, I had to take a quick break from recording this video to go to a kickboxing class, but now let's jump straight back in and get this one wrapped up for you. Again, don't forget, if you do want all of the blueprints and templates for what we're building today, check out the description below and you can download them there. And if you have any issues or if you want to connect with me, drop me a comment below and I'll be happy to help out where I can. And if you like this video, do subscribe, give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. I'm trying to build the channel right now so I can share more awesome templates with you guys in the future. So that being said, and that's probably a little bit of a jarring segue, let's jump straight back in and get cracking. So we have down here our content output. As I was previously just saying, we now need to come back to our make scenario and create our other content pathways so that we can get multiple pieces of content out of this one transcript. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out a little bit first off. And then I'm going to press shift and then I'm going to drag the mouse over these 3 modules here. And then I'm going to right click. I'm going to click copy modules. And I'm going to right click down here and click paste. I'm just going to pull these over to the side. And then I'm just going to grab I'm just going to click here in Tools, Flow Controls, and then I'm just going to grab a router. Actually, forget that. Let me just delete that router there. I'm going to just right click in between these two here. So between Apify and the ChatGPT, I'm going to right click there and click Add Router. And then again, Shift, grab all of these and bring them close to the router so that they connect up like that. And the reason why we're creating this second path here, that's what a router does. It's going to send the process down this path, and then it's going to also send it down this path. And that's because we want to be able to create a new assistant here for our X/Twitter posts. So let me just tidy this up. And then before we configure these, let's just go over to our assistants API. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to click on clone. So we want to clone that. And then we're going to click on our copy of LinkedIn Post Assistant. I'm going to call this X Post Assistant so that we've got a new assistant here. Hopefully that should update for us. It does. And now I'm just going to update the prompt here as well. So give me a second. I'm just going to grab the instructions here from this one because it doesn't seem like it's copied everything over from the prompt. No, it hasn't. So I'm just going to paste that over because we did have our piece in here about the YouTube transcription. So you're an expert writer that works with me to create engaging and useful Twitter posts. I'm just going to call it Twitter here rather than X because I can't remember when the ChatGPT history goes to. I'm sure it does know that it's X, but I'm just going to use Twitter just to avoid any confusion. I will provide you with the YouTube transcript, and you will take the key insights from that transcript, turn them into short posts. You always write posts that are useful for the reader. You'll always reference the writing style from the vector storage so that you understand how to write the posts. And guys, what I'll do as well for the templates is I'll grab these prompts and I will just create a third table here just called prompts. And this doesn't have any relevance to the content stuff, but I'll just drop the prompts in here so that you can take these and for your own assistance and use them and tweak them for however you want to. Because obviously at the end of this, if you do download the templates, you can just copy this Airtable base. So you get everything with inside it. So let's go back over here. It's got an example in here for our LinkedIn post. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And I'm just going to grab a post from my Twitter profile. I'll just grab a short post like this. And again, guys, you would spend more time on this and make sure that you've got good content examples to give your assistant here. The better the examples, the better the output. I'm just gonna correct that typo. Yeah, and we're good to go. So I'm gonna click off there. Now our new assistant is set up for our X posts. So if we come back over to our make scenario, then down here, I'm going to click on this ChatGPT module that we created. I'm going to change this from our LinkedIn post assistant over to our X post assistant. And then it says, here's the transcript. And we're just going to grab the transcript from there, make sure that that is all good. And then we can just double check Airtable. Let's sort of take a look here, our content outputs. The thing that we're going to change here is from the platform from LinkedIn to X. And that's about it because everything else remains the same. Let me just triple check here. Yeah, we're going to update the status of the original YT input. So now we have our second path here. So when we do run this, we're going to get two outputs, right? We're going to get our LinkedIn output here. And then we're also going to get a new row in our table here that has also an X post, Twitter post. And then again, if we wanted to run this for Instagram, we would just go highlight all of these. So shift and drag your mouse over to select them all, copy the modules, paste. Let's pull that over to the router so it connects. Let's click on our little auto align so it connects all of those guys up. I'm going to click on save. Then we'll go over to our assistants. I'm going to just grab this assistant here. We're going to clone it. We're going to call this we're going to call this Instagram post assistant. I'm going to come back here. I've noticed that it's not copying the full, it's not copying the the instructions correctly for some reason. So I'm just going to come back into here, grab these instructions, and then I'm going to pop these ones in here. I'm not going to put an example in here. If you guys use Instagram, you can put an example in. I don't personally, so I don't have anything to put in here as an example, but I will let you guys configure that if you want to. We call this Instagram posts. And again, you would want to tweak this to how you want this to output, guys, but you get the idea by now. I'm going to come back. So now we've got our 3 assistants to create our specific posts. Let me come back over to our make scenario. I'm going to click on this one. We're going to change this post assistant to our Instagram post assistant. It's using the transcript as before, which is great. I'm going to click on OK. Airtable, the only thing that we're going to change here is from X to Instagram. I'm going to click on OK, and everything else is good. So now we can run this from our YouTube video that we've got here, and we can process the whole thing, and then get 3 pieces of content for 3 different platforms, but tailored to each platform as well, because our assistant should be set up to be tailored to that with examples and with context that it is creating posts only for this type of platform. So let's see what we get, right? So we're going to right click over on our Airtable, choose where to start, choose manually. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to come back into our YT inputs table. I'm going to move this to ready so it will pass through the filter that we created. If you remember, we created this filter here. So now I'm going to click run once, and I'll come back in a second once the sleep is done and we've got all of our content. All right, guys, so this is now run. We've got all three routes have been actioned. If we come back to our Airtable, we can now see we have our 3 new pieces of content here, one for LinkedIn, one for X, one for Instagram, and these are all in drafted state. So we would come in, we would do what we need to do. Oh, so I've just noticed that it's not actually pulled through the transcript. So what that means is that the Apify, so we've got our 45-second wait here. If we come over to Apify, I can look at the last job, and it actually took 52 seconds. And you can see previously down here, we had one that took 48 seconds. So what we're actually going to need to do here is just bump up this to 60 seconds, just to make sure it's got enough time. I think at certain times of day, Apify might run a bit slower because there's a lot of people using it. So we've just bumped that up. Let's run this again, and I'll come back once it's finished, guys. All right, so now this is all run through, guys. Let's take a quick look and see what we've got. Now, these were the ones that we don't need because they did not have the transcript. I want to keep all that in because I think it's important just to see the issues that sometimes you run into, guys, and how to think about solving them. All right, so now we have our final 3 here. So we've got our straight to the point. I like this style for LinkedIn. We've got our X post here, our Twitter post here. And then we also have our Instagram post. We have a bunch of Instagram posts here that it's given us. And we could, I suppose, delete the ones that we don't want and then keep the ones that we do. Or we could also actually just pull these out into extra rows here if we wanted to. And then the final thing that we want to be able to do here is take these pieces of content and then auto post them to the platform. So we want to be able to do that by just clicking, changing this from drafted to ready, right? So we need to go back into make. We're finished with this scenario. So I'm just going to click save. I'm going to come back, and then we are going to go into, I'm just going to pull this in here. Yeah, now we're going to create our second one here, which is a very simple one. It's going to be a watch Airtable with a router, and then we're going to post over to these different platforms. So let's build this out. So click on create a new scenario. I'm going to call this YouTube to social posts to add to. And I'm going to click on plus. I'm going to click on Airtable. And we're going to watch for records. And we're going to link it to our base again. And then we're going to link it to our second table, which is our content inputs, content outputs, sorry. And the trigger field is going to be last modified. And our label field is going to be our content ID, all right? So I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to click choose manually to just choose one to work with here. I'm going to use ID 14 for our LinkedIn. So I'm just going to grab that one, click on OK. And I'm just going to run once just so it pulls that data through and we've got something to work with. So you can see now here, we've pulled through our content. So we've got, the content is what we're going to be working with. So the next thing that we want to do is create our router. So I'm going to click flow control, router, and then we're going to want to pass it down one of 3 different paths depending on what platform the content is for, right? So first off, we're going to choose LinkedIn. So I'm going to click on that node there and then type LinkedIn. And now you can see we can create a user text post. So I'm going to grab that. It's already hooked up to my LinkedIn account, so you'll need to add that if you don't have that done already. And then the content for this is very straightforward. We're just going to drop the content in. Actually, if I come back here, you can add mentions if you want to, but I'm not going to do that. Media type, you can also change this to an article. If you wanted to actually post articles, you can also set this up so that you can do it that way. Public, main feed, and okay, so we're good with the LinkedIn. But remember, we only want to send the content down this path if it is LinkedIn content, right? Based on our platform. So what we want to do is create another filter here. So we're going to click on this little tool icon, click on setup filter. I'm just going to call this LinkedIn. And then the condition is going to be platform is equal to, then I'm going to hard type it in, LinkedIn. Now I'm going to click on OK. So it's only going to pass through and post this content on LinkedIn if the platform in Airtable is LinkedIn. The next thing that we need to do is set up our X posting. Now this is a little bit more complicated because it does involve you setting up a developer account on X. So I'm just going to very quickly show you how to do that. So if we come over to developer.x.com, if you don't have an X account, you will need one. So you need to set up an X account, log into developer.x.com, and then you will have access to the developer portal. When you sign up for the developer side of things, it'll ask you a couple of questions. You need to fill in what you're going to be using the developer portal for, what your app is going to do, because you have to create an app here in the developer portal. So it's going to ask you what that is for, and you can just put your details in there, what you're actually going to be using it for, auto posting to X, etc. Now, when you do that, once you get into this dashboard section, if you click on projects and apps, it will create a default project for you. And then inside that default project, you will have an app already created for you. It's usually just a long string of numbers like this. I've already deleted that one, but you don't need to. And I've already created a new app for myself here. So what you're going to want to do is click into your app, come down here to user authentication settings, click on setup. Then you're going to want to give it the permissions, read, write, and write direct message. You could just get away with read and write here. I suppose you don't really need it to post direct messages, but I would just put it on just in case you might want it in the future. Then we're going to want to set the type of app as web app. Now we need to put some specific information in these 2 required fields here. So if I come back over to make, I'm going to click on this module here. I'm going to put X or type Twitter in. So you can see that, and I'm going to click on create a post. And then what happens here is if it's going to ask you to create to connect your Twitter account. And to do that, we need to have our app ready, because what it's going to do is going to ask you for a client ID and then a client secret ID. So if we click on this little link here, it says online help. It's going to take us to the documents, and then scroll down and you'll see here in the app info section, enter the following details. So first off, we're going to grab this URL here. I'm just going to copy that, come back over to our developer app info. I'm going to paste that one in there. Then we're going to add another one, come back over to these docs, and then we need to also drop this one in. So I'm going to paste that one in. And then we also have this website URL here. So we're going to grab that, put that into here. Now we're good to go, right? So now we can click save. Yes, we want to change the permissions. Now it's going to give you your client ID and your client secret, right? So these two things here are what you need to put into when you're clicking to create your connection. It's going to ask you for that here. So you got your client ID, which is this one. And then you've got your client secret, which you're going to put in there, click save, and then it will connect through. So that's how you create the connection to Twitter. You do have to create that application. So now now that we've created the connection there, all that we need to do is grab the content. We're going to pop that in there. And then again, we're going to set our filter up. So set up a filter. I'm going to call this Twitter/X. And then I'm going to put the platform equals to X because that's what we've got it set up as in Airtable. Click on OK. And then the final one that you can do here, I'm just going to show you how to do it, but I'm not going to go through the full process, is I'm going to click on add mod. So I'm going to right click on the canvas here, click add module, and then you can go to Instagram. And if you want to use Instagram, the Instagram one is not what you need. What you need is the Instagram for business. So if you click on Instagram for business, you can see create a photo post, create a reel post. You can download media, get media. It's a bunch of stuff that you can do on this. But what you're going to want to do is create a photo post. And then it's going to ask you to connect to your Facebook account. And then it's going to ask you to select a page. I don't have anything set up here to use here, but you can follow this process if you do want to use this for Instagram as well. And you can see how that would work there. But then once you've got these three things set up and your filters set up, you're good to go. But I'm just going to delete this because like I say, I don't have Instagram, but I just wanted to show you that you could set that up as well if you wanted to. So now we've got our really simple automation here, where it's going to watch the Airtable record. And then one thing that we need to do is make sure that it's only processing this content if we've updated the status to ready, right? So it's the same way that we did previously with our ready over here. What we'll do is we'll come back over to this piece here. We're going to click on this little tool, set up a filter. Then we're going to say ready. And then the condition is going to be status equal to ready. And that just means every time that this record is updated, it's going to check and see if it's ready. And if it is, then it's going to publish it across to one of these platforms. So what I'm going to do is let's go over here. I will put my LinkedIn over onto ready here. And then let's load up LinkedIn and let's test and see if this works, right? So I'll come over to my my profile here. So we can see in the posts section here that if I go back over to make.com, I'm going to right click, choose where to start, choose manually. I'm going to grab our ID 14 post because that one's ready. And then I'm going to click on run once just to test this. I've run into an error because I have my previous application that I had this set up for here is no longer available. I deleted it. So let me just set up a new one and we'll try again in a sec. All right, so I've just fixed this error. I've just created a new app and linked it up so this should be able to run even though we're not testing that anyway. Hope you don't mind me leaving these errors in, guys. I do like to show that, you know, we do run into errors as we're doing these things and we just need to fix them along the way. So I'm going to select 14 again, click on run once. Now it's going to run and it says, look, okay, well, it was a LinkedIn platform. So it's gone down the LinkedIn path and now you can see it's posted on LinkedIn. So if I come over to LinkedIn here, do a quick refresh, you can see the post is here. It's been posted, right? I'm just going to delete that because I obviously don't want to leave that on my LinkedIn because I haven't refined it or edited it in any way. Now, the only thing that we've not got here is an update to our status to published. So I'm just going to want to add that in over at the end here as well. Click on add a module, Airtable, update record, and I'm going to come back into our base. Click on table, content outputs. The record ID that I'm going to update is the one that we sent over, the one we started with. And then the only thing that we're going to do here is come down to status, remove the mapping feature, and then I'm just going to change that to published so that we know that it is published. And then I'm just going to clone that and then drag that one on X, and then do the same thing if you do have the Instagram set up as well. You know, and I think there are other platforms that you could post this to. So you can play around with that, but all that we would need to do now, and let's see this run through together, right, is save. And then I'm going to click turn this on. So we want to turn this on, so it's going to run automatically. Then I'm going to come out, and I'm also going to come into our first one. I'm going to turn that on. So now we can see this working in action, right? So if I come back over to our video, I'm just going to grab the URL. I'm going to come into our inputs. I'm going to create a new account. Sorry, a new row. I'm going to drop it in. So now, pending nothing's going to happen, what it's looking for is an update to the last modified, and only when it's ready. So now I'm going to click ready. Now, if I come back over to our make scenario, you can see that everything is set up and ready to go. But we do have one issue here. Just for this video, is this is only going to run every 15 minutes. So it's only going to check this every 15 minutes. I just want to speed that up for the sake of this video. So I'm just going to click on this little clock, and I'm going to change this to 1 minute, right? So I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to click on save. And now it's going to check this every 1 minute. So we'll jump back in a sec once this starts to run, and then we can see this all play out together. All right, guys, so we can see this is now running here. It's all kicked in. It started to run. So we should have 2 pieces of content loaded in here for our new one. Yeah, and there's the third, right? So it's created our content, which is great. Now what we would want to do is we would want to edit this content, make sure that it's all good to go. And then once it is good to go, we could click on ready, and then we could click on ready here. And then we're going to come into our second automation. Obviously, we've got this set at 15 minutes again. I'm just going to change it down to 1 minute just for the sake of this video. You can set the interval to whatever you want it to be. And if we click save, come back out, and then in a second, we'll see that run. And because we set both of these as ready to LinkedIn and X, you can see that's just been published on LinkedIn. Literally happened while we were doing it. Let's double check. Yeah, right. So we can see the post here. I'm just going to delete that quickly. And then also let's check Twitter. Open up the profile, and then if I scroll down, okay, now we've got our new Twitter post here. So I'm just going to delete that. There we go. We are good to go. We've done everything right. We now have our automations on and working and all connected to our Airtable database. So I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. I hope that you found this useful. I know I've shared like the errors and everything, and we've kind of fixed things along the way. I know it's been a little like slightly longer video. I hope that's all right. But I just want to show you the process of building these things out, thinking these things through. And yeah, I hope you found it useful, and you can take these templates, tweak it to however you want to use these things for yourself and for your business. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did find this useful. And I will see you next week for another automation showcase.